This is the E-commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome to the E-commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, Head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia, and I'm here with my co-host, Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations. Today, we're digging into the use of AMC audiences with sponsored products, a capability on Amazon that was announced back at Unboxed in October. And we've got two of our go-to retail media experts with us, Ross and Carlos, to talk through what's new, what's working, and how brands are starting to put this into action. So Ross, Carlos, great to have you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And neither one of you are new to the podcast. So you're seasoned pros, not only with retail media, but to the e-commerce Braintrust. So I'm really excited for our conversation today. All right, well, with that, let's get started. AMC, we've been using it for quite a while, and it's the core part of how we build audiences for DSP. But using it as a foundation for sponsored ads is kind of a newer development. Before we dig into how that's showing up in practice, can you give a quick refresher on the key capabilities across sponsored ad side, like placements, targeting, bidding, and how those connect with AMC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most important thing to understand is that the big difference between the use case of AMC custom audiences in DSP and sponsored ads is around how they actually function in the campaigns themselves. So for sponsored ads and for sponsored product ads and sponsored brand ads, you're not actually choosing an audience to target. You're only boosting your bids for those specific audiences. So in the campaign creation workflow and in the campaign settings, it all falls under bid modification as opposed to audience selection. For sponsored display campaigns, it functions more like DSP. I can choose a custom audience to target exclusively as opposed to boosting my bids for a specific audience with that modifier.
Sponsored display is like a weird middle ground, right? Like, are we doing many custom audiences for sponsored display, or at that point it's like just do DSP already?
Yeah, I think by and large I would say just use DSP, because there's like our general philosophy here is like, if you're going to use anything at all, like use the full Formula One car of display and not the soapbox version, which is sponsored display.
Wow, that's a big dig at sponsored display there.
Soapbox derbies could be fun.
Yeah, I didn't know you had such a strong stance there.
I mean, the strong, it's all hot takes for me all the time. Yeah. But the key thing to understand here as well, is you're boosting your bid for a specific audience. You're not excluding that audience. You're not only targeting that audience. You're only modifying the search ad you're willing to bid on based on the customer who lives within that audience segment.
I mean, I think there's a fairly obvious answer here, but I'd love to hear Carlos and Ross your take to see if this obvious answer is correct. But the fact that you could only boost bids with these audiences, right? You can't down bid against them. You can't exclude against them. Like, what's your take on the rationale behind that? Do you see it changing at all in terms of like the capabilities for these audiences specific to sponsored ads?
That's a good question. Yeah, Carlos, you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will maybe change in the future, because I think you are not really focusing on the audiences. It's what Ross was saying. It's just a bid boost.
Yeah.
So in order to focus on these audiences, you need to do some tricks like low bid and try to have a really big boost on just to focus on these audiences. So I think it will change in the future for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to know at this point. I think the idea of adding exclusions is something that we've requested on the roadmap to Amazon. So if they're listening to us, then maybe we'll get this feature. It's kind of hard to say, because those are not audience, like keyword negation is a big part of, the standard or any kind of target negation is a big part of the standard sponsored ads experience. I would hope that audience exclusions would be in the future as well.
Note to Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious answer I was hinting at is like the relative incentive to roll out products from Amazon that increase ad spend versus decrease ad spend. Like, there's always going to be a thumb on the scale on one of those levers. So, I mean, let's get into the weeds here a little bit with like any of these platform changes where I think they alter fundamentally how we approach our campaign building and our architecture and just like the way that we target ad spend to the people that we want to see those ads. And so I'm wondering, like, what, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, this didn't really even exist as a concept for sponsored ads. We're now considerably past that. Can you kind of give a sense of what the crawl, walk, run approach is from that point of, which I bet a lot of brands are still in? I have no audiences applied to my sponsored ads. And like, how do you start to build out that muscle within your advertising infrastructure?
Yeah, I think so. I can take this one. So
Yeah.
I think that the main thing is just identifying which is the goal. So if it's more based on upper funnel, you want to get more new to brand customers, you want more customer acquisition. Or in the other hand, if you want to focus more on low funnel, and what you want to do is just focusing on trying to get people that are already customers from the brand to repeat purchase or get them into subscribe and save. So I think the first thing is just define the goal of these campaigns, and then with the AMC audiences, there's really many options that you can create. So you can create the lookalike purchasers or subscribers that will really work for the upper funnel. But then for the loyalty, what you can do is just focus on high value audiences, people that have already purchased from the brand multiple times, or people that are already in the customer base. So I think defining the goals there is a really important one. So that way you can select which audiences you want to really focus.
And just like mechanically, I can only at the moment, right? I could do a single audience per campaign. So you're duplicating campaigns for these and applied audience? Like how do you actually operationalize this? I'm curious.
That's another limitation that we are having at the moment, that we can only focus on just one of the AMC audiences in order to beat boost. So normally what you need to do is just create multiple campaigns if you want to focus on these AMC audiences. So you will need to test different campaigns with the different audiences that are available.
So there's like some inherent architecture complexity that stems from this?
Yeah.
When we started out, our approach was to try and test as many audiences as we thought. Like we had like a core set of audiences to test. And so we created a number of like kind of like blank campaigns, like auto campaigns with very, very low bids, and sort of said like, without any kind of targeting at all, what is the performance of the campaign with a very low bid and like a boosted audience bid? And from that data set, we were able to say like, okay, here are the audiences that seem to have like some of the best performance. They like they put ads in front of people in a way that deliver like good conversion rate, good purchase rate. And so we were able to identify like some really essential starter audiences. So like Carlos mentioned, purchaser lookalike audience, subscriber lookalike audience, high value customer lookalike audience on the like expansion new to brand side. And then on the retention side, customers that have added to cart, customers that have searched for your branded keywords, customers that have visited your product detail pages or been exposed to your upper funnel DSP ads.
We really like to categorize things in our conversations here. So, and bucket them. Could you take those audiences that you've talked about after all this testing, Ross, and like, how would you categorize them? Like, here are the ones absolutely crazy not to use them, worth a shot to test, and then those that you should completely steer clear of. How would you categorize, after doing all this testing, those audiences?
So for me, the purchaser and subscriber lookalike audiences are absolute must-haves, because what we've seen is that for a non-branded campaign, utilizing them can double your ROAS. It can double your conversion rate. And so that's a really effective and powerful tool to use to improve the efficiency of your like non-branded expansion efforts. Those are must uses. And then on the retention side, the add to cart and the high value customer audiences really helps you like zoom in to spend your money on the subset of customers that are most likely to convert, so that you're spending ads on like a smaller subset of people. And so that's really those are the two refining actions that I would highly recommend.
Any that you would say, not worth it, steer clear?
Yeah, that's a really good one.
You're the king of the hot takes. I have a feeling.
Besides sponsored display, we know how you feel on that.
Yeah, right. So some of the ones that we've tested, which I would say are like too granular, don't go down this rabbit hole. We started out saying like, okay, can we make one-to-one audiences? So like if I'm advertising one specific product, can I build an AMC lookalike audience for the purchasers of just that product alone? Can I apply it to like just that single ASIN campaign? That approach was like too granular. A lot of those AMC audiences failed, or they were too small, or the reach of the campaign ended up being too tiny. So I would say that level of granularity is a bit of a danger zone. It's a quagmire. Instead, go broader. Like, get the purchaser lookalike for your entire brand. If that works and you have more desire to test, maybe go to the subcategory level of your to like try and refine it further and see if it's more efficient. But that would be one of the things I would say. Like, don't go hyper granular here, because you'll go crazy and you don't have enough budget to test to get a statistically significant answer.
A helpful caution, and you dropped a good like vocabulary word of the day with quagmire. So all good things there.
Nice little
everything is recorded in terms of Scrabble points.
yeah. It's quagmire spelled with a Z at the end. The Z is silent. The thing I feel like we hear a lot with AMC, you could I think say this about the sponsored product audiences, but I also just the features of AMC generally, is that like the platform is so robust and it's so broad. It suffers from, it can do everything, but it's difficult to understand the specific things that you need to do with the platform. And so wondering how you think about this, like, yeah, great. We're seeing some of these initial audiences that you apply and you see initial increases in ROAS, but at the same time, there's a trade-off in like the amount of complexity that you have to manage, like the way that we build these campaigns, like all of it changes by the introduction of this. So like, is there a sweet spot between I'm going to leverage some instructional queries for my campaigns because I can see really good returns on those, down all the way to like, I'm going to build out a bunch of custom SQL audiences to try to derive a specific audience use case for a specific campaign that has a specific product. Like, I feel like there's a huge spectrum here of what I could be activating. And like, if where sort of on that spectrum is the point of diminishing returns, and does that vary by client? A lot of questions there, but
a lot of questions.
Yeah. How do you think about that?
I can set this up, and then maybe Carlos, you can answer some more of the like how we manage the complexity piece, since we worked on this for a few brands together. So I would say like go down the road of utilizing like what's available out of the box first. Like, there are some standard baked in audiences, like customers that have added to cart but not purchased, that like you can easily activate on. Purchasers subscribe, like looking at your subset of purchasers and then building a lookalike audience is like, that's a few clicks away. Like
an instructional query, the audience is available in the console, grab it and apply it.
Audience is available in the console. We have PackView, which helps us like build more audiences at scale. So if you have a tool that's utilizing this, like leverage that as well to like unify things. But in terms of managing the complexity, Carlos, you probably have like some of the best guidance and tips on how we track and manage and name and like keep it all straight.
Yeah, I think, the first thing with AMC audiences on the PPC side is just keep it simple. So try to not go for all the audiences, how we have said. Try to just keep it simple. The campaigns that you have already that are working. So if you have a campaign that is working for category terms, try to duplicate that one, implement low bids, get the lookalike purchasers or lookalike subscribers. Try to get that to a really big boost there and try to test that first. And then from there, you can scale, or you can try to do another campaigns based on different audiences. But I think just keep it simple first, try to test, see how it goes, and then move from there.
So that's fair. I was going to say, like, this is sort of an iterative augmentation, less so like a full rebuild of our campaign architecture. Yeah. Is that fair?
It's like a great addition to the PPC strategy. Yeah. It's not going to be the center of the PPC strategy, but it's going to be a great addition that can really help with efficiency. It can help with the CPC reduction that we can see that is increasing in all the categories and in all the brands that we have. So it's a really good one to really decrease the clicks, the CPC on the campaigns.
So kind of on that note, yes, there's complexity with this, but the reason we're here talking about it is because there's some wins. We've seen some real significant wins with these campaigns. Can you highlight a couple that stand out to you where layering in AMC audiences really made a difference in the sponsor product strategy?
Yeah, so something that we have tested, and I have tested with Ross in one of the clients and some of the clients that we are working together, And what we have seen is that it really decreased the CPC on these campaigns. It really increased the ROAS. It doubled the ROAS in some of the product lines that we have been testing it. Also, the conversion rate it improves. So in terms of efficiency, what we have seen is that we are more likely to get a purchase from these audiences than if we are just going broad for just targeting like keywords.
And you're able to do this without considerably like, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's because we're taking a sort of existing campaign that's working, duplicating it, then apply that audience to that campaign. You have a campaign that's more efficient and more refined, but you're also not necessarily trading off the volume that you had prior because you have this other mechanism to get that more efficient, refined, but you could still keep the spend to the extent that you wanted in your sort of legacy broader campaign and thus not sacrifice volume. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, the new campaign is just like try to refine really the audience.
Yeah.
So it's more valuable for the objective of getting more efficiency on the campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Part of the reason why we do it that way is because we found that there are core limitations with this approach. And it's that there's not nearly as much scale when you are refining your audience size down. So instead of, your search volume is 10,000 a month for a specific keyword. Well, if I'm refining to only bid on the subset of those people that are searching that look like my current purchasers, I might actually only be getting like 10, 15, 20% of the volume that's available to me anymore. And so in order to not sacrifice scale, we run both strategies side by side.
So ultimately, when you think about it from a capabilities perspective, AMC audiences for sponsored ads hasn't changed much. It's more in how advertisers can interact with them. We're seeing more like AMC-esque features in the ads console. Can you talk a little bit about what we've seen to date around this and how we might see this trend continue?
Yeah, so we noticed this starting to flow into the sponsored brand ads workflow, probably most prominently in the last month or two. And so there's now a new native bid modifier that's available in the sponsored brand creation workflow, which is new to brand bid boosting. So they're essentially saying right in the platform, without having to create an AMC audience, without having an AMC instance, we're just going to extract the data of who is most likely to be a new to brand customer. We're going to take that demographic audience data and just make it available for anyone to use in their sponsored brand campaign. And so that to me is the first example of how we're going to see the AMC-ification of sponsored ads progress even further, to the point where you don't need to have an AMC instance. You don't need to know how to use AMC. You don't need to know how to use SQL. Amazon is going to be gathering data from us advertisers who are out there figuring out which AMC audiences work and saying yes, across the board, this audience consistently improves results. We're just going to make it available off the shelf right in the campaign workflow. Mm-hmm. Good example of that is how targeting has changed recently. So now there are keyword themes that you can target instead of specific keywords. So keywords related to my product or keywords related to my category. That's fundamentally the same kind of black boxification of sponsored ads to make it easier to activate based on a larger data set that they have.
Mm-hmm. Ification. Added to the end. AMC-ification, black boxification.
Ross's pontification. I want to pull that apart a bit because I think it speaks to a larger trend here, which is early days of any sort of sponsored search bidding, it was keyword targeting, right? I give me an exact phrase of broad, maybe a modified broad, and that's going to be determining where my ad shows up and to whom. And then we saw, Google, I think, was really the leader here, but the idea of a product listing ad, right? Ingest all the information of my product, take my merchant feed, and then let me buy ads against the product details themselves. And that was really it. It seems like years. And then, of course, programmatic layered in on top of that. But it seems like here we're starting to see this fundamental shift where it's I don't only live in keyword targeting. I don't only live in product targeting. I live in this third, more complex, more nuanced, hopefully more effective world in which I'm bidding on the attributes of the audience and how much I want to show up for that type of person. And so I'm just wondering, this seems like a pretty fundamental shift, at least from my perspective. And I'm wondering how it makes us think about being effective stewards of our clients' ad budget over time as this becomes more and more the norm. So big question, Ross and Carlos, but I'm curious, like just where you see this heading.
Carlos, do you want to start?
I think it's like similar to what we are seeing in DSP, you can refine the audiences, you can try to get more into like your customer persona, you can really double down on which is your target audience that you want to go for. So I think that's what Amazon is trying to figure out, how to implement that in the PPC side. And AMC audiences is just like the first step on how we can try to refine the audiences on the PPC side, because you can only target keywords or you can target products inside Amazon, but you cannot really define which is the audience that you want to go for or which is the people that you want to interact with ads. So I think it's just trying to move in the DSP strategy that they have to the PPC side.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it kind of speaks to the development over time, like as the platform gets more and more solved, as brands, as the competition becomes a little bit, maybe even like if there was no new developments in terms of ad products, it would get kind of stagnant. Like, yes, it's solved. This is how you maximize bids. This is how you this is how you optimize for share of voice. And it's hard for any one brand to get ahead. Amazon has done a really interesting job of like consistently introducing new product features so that there's an opportunity for, brands that are experimenting with new ad features to get ahead of even like really big established brands. And so there's this like really great workflow there. So to be an effective steward of our brand's ad budgets, like we always want to be on the forefront of that to take advantage of early gains from using new ad products. But I think the larger trend here that we're going to see is that metrics like share of voice are going to be less important, because I don't care about winning every single eyeball for a keyword. I actually only care about winning the subset of eyeballs that are most likely to convert or most likely to be a high lifetime value customer, or most likely to purchase multiple products in my assortment. Like that is the new game that we are moving towards in the future. And I think we're going to be really zeroing in on how to maximize that for our brands.
Right. Like there's an input of like, this clicker impression and the person that it's served to relative to the perceived value of that clicker impression over the long term. And that's the sort of new understanding that we have to hold here.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, it's a brave new world ahead of us. But I feel good knowing that we'll have you guys to lean on as we go through it, to learn about the changes that we're managing through and the successes that we're gaining as we test and learn along the way. So thank you both for joining us today. It was a great conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.